Hello, podcast friends, and welcome to today's Prime Knowledge Podcast. Today, I am sat with Mel and Joe, and these are the part of the team here at Prime Knowledge. And today, we're going to talk about what it's like to run a business with your life partner. It's what I do in my business with my wife, and I can relate to this. So I thought it'd be really interested to get Joe and Mel's insights on kind of what's good, what's bad, and how they make it work. So let's give a little background into the guys here at Prime Knowledge. So let's give us a little intro, Joe, into just a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I was born and brought up in the north of England with a kind of 5-year stint as a kid in Bedfordshire in the interim, and went from a local state school to Cambridge, studied English. Was going to do postgrad in Australia, but it went a bit pear-shaped. Taught English in Japan for a little while. Relocated down to the southeast of England, and got a job in a conference company where I bumped into this strange Australian woman on her first day at work, and hand over to Mel, and you can pick up the story from there.
Strange Australian woman. What an intro he's giving you there now.
Yeah.
So let's give yourself a little bit of a background for the people listening, a little bit about who you are and where you're from.
So I'm Melinda. I'm from Australia. I came over to the UK and I'd been working for the Sydney office of a conference company, and then came over to the London office, and I met Joe on my first day at work.
And it's been downhill ever since.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't all romance from day one, but we did have lunch together as a team. So it was a nice introduction. And since then we have moved to the gorgeous Devon, and started our property investing portfolio, introduced Joe to property and the very important role of hanging on to a flat in London. A couple of kids and a couple of businesses later, and we're all still alive.
Yeah, that's always a good place to start, right? We're all still alive. So I obviously know you guys pretty well. So me and Joe talked about this recently about how you obviously started working together before you were in a relationship together. So let's talk about that a little bit, how you think that probably helped you within business, that kind of dynamic before you got started.
It's certainly, I think dynamic is the right word, is that when we first met, we were colleagues in a team in a third-party company that we were both employed by. So the very beginning of our relationship, we were, from the outset, work colleagues, doing the same job. So an element of understanding and mutual respect as to what we were each doing. And our relationship that built on a more kind of personal level beyond that always had that as the foundation. So actually working together is where we started. It wasn't something that came to us and that was therefore a challenge to accommodate. It was almost the other way around. And even in the context of the company where we both worked, I can't remember how long we were working there together, but I was only with that company for 12 months before I got headhunted and moved, and Melinda kind of joined, a few months into my time there. So we started as work colleagues, and then quite soon after that, we were still doing the same job but in different companies, but our working relationship was established before anything else was. I don't know, Mel, what's your take on that?
I think we've run parallel projects for our entire lives together. And the nice thing is, the pressure points. So when somebody's having a hard time, you know how to support them. And equally, if somebody's not meeting deadline, needs some encouragement or just a push, then we know how to identify those as well.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's certainly so. It'd be interesting to speak to you actually about how do you have any kind of good tactics for balancing keeping the two parts of your life separate? So do you have any, are you very good at like finishing work at 5 and not
Absolutely
talking
not.
about work.
No,
Because my 9-year-old will quite often tell us at the dinner table to say, "Stop talking about work,"
yeah,
and I didn't realise sometimes.
our 16-year-old does the same. But my attitude has been from the outset: if you can do what you love, and it's not work, and if you love doing it, then why would you stop because it's turned 5 or 5:30? So, for the
Yeah,
longest time now, I've tried to do only projects that I have an enthusiasm for and a passion for. And there are obligations and commitments. Obviously, sometimes when you've taken something on, there are bits where it's just grind and put your bum on the seat and do the graft, and you've got to get that done. But my business life is not separate from my personal life. It's all part and parcel of the same thing. So, um, work-life balance, I have no work-life balance. It's all a kind of a flat line, and it's all a scramble of all the same stuff. We do try and preserve some elements of family time, sitting around the dinner table every night when we can. Occasionally, life gets in the way, but and we do stuff as a family with our daughter and our son. Even though he's now at university, we're very much a family of four. But that's always included the business stuff as well. We took the kids to business meetings when they were little.
yes, they've always been involved. What about for you? How do you feel about how you kind of balance work and home life when you're in businesses together?
Yeah, I think I had a period of running the estate agency that was pretty full on. So I had a physical workplace to go to, and then coming home as a pause from that. I think early on we went to Australia and we'd go for an extended period of time, and that was great for a change of environment, a bit of social, quite a lot of social actually, but also a bit of distance and perspective, or 12,000 miles worth of distance, but perspective to make some plans as to what we were achieving in the next year. And we did that early on in our relationship. And obviously children and school commitments and things like that meant that we did less and less of that over the more recent years. But I'd definitely like to get back to that kind of balance. But Joe's right, family dinners from day dot of having children. That was a recipe for indigestion when they were little. I won't lie. But but no, I think watching them suddenly enter into business environments. So Polly's now got a job, Robert's working through university. It's really great. Just seeing them understand people, being able to observe different environments, HR commitments and things like that as well. So I think some of what our work ethic has rubbed off on them. So that's sort of a recent revelation as they enter the next phase of their lives.
It's funny, you don't know how much things shape kids, and what we always told as a story in relation to network marketing, to the utility warehouse business that we have, has become a more significant story as time's gone by. So really early on in our journey in that, somebody said we need to go to the company conference. The company runs like a big annual event. And we said, well, we've got little kids, we can't really take them. It's in Cheltenham, so we'd have to go and stay overnight. It's just that little bit too far to get up and get the kids out and be there for 8:30, 9 o'clock start. And somebody in the business said, look, just go. It'll change your perspective on the whole business. And so we took the kids. We booked overnight stay at the glamorous Harvester just around the corner from GCHQ. And the event was at Cheltenham Racecourse. And when we got there, our daughter was 9 and she was wowed by the stage and the show and the pumping music and the lights. And to her, it was like being in a big rock event, like in a theatrical event. Whereas our son, who was 14, was engaged with the content of the business like related presentation. So he sat there taking notes right from minute one. We were given notepads and he was just like scribbling stuff down. So that was almost 8 years ago now. But 8 years on, daughter is now studying music, performance and production, has been on stage and fronted rock bands, and son is studying business and marketing at the University of Sussex. And so, although we always told that story within the context of UW as part of our journey, to encourage people to go to events, because it's game changer for us as adults and our mindset. But actually for the kids, I wonder just how much that set in motion the things that they are now doing that reflects the experiences that they had when daughter was 9 and son was 14.
There's a lot to be said for nature and nurture, and they're still working through the process of figuring out like what's more important.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Ultimately, your kids and my kids are the same in the same sense, are so totally, like, my kids are so different and yours are the same. They're such different personalities, and I think that's obviously the nature bit, but then nurture is how do you put them in a position to kind of go and do what they want to do. Is teaching them that about work and about business and about what it is you want to be doing. And we've talked before, Joe, about you wanting to do things that you love all the time with work, and then finding a way of making it pay for you. I think that's a really great kind of thing that I'd like to give to my kids. It's like, do what you love. If you can get paid for it, great. If not, find a way to get paid so you can do the thing you love, rather than spending 40, 50 hours a week working a job you hate for the money, for whatever, for the wrong kind of reasons. So yeah, I think, I would imagine that it probably did give them lots of value in that point to go, cool, this is exciting in two very different ways. So let's give a little brief history on Mel, the businesses that you've run together, and kind of how long you've done that, and kind of what was the process that you've been through with that and Joe.
Sure. So as I said, we both started professional careers, I suppose. We've had jobs when we were younger, but conferences was our introductory industry, and that was a bit like a journalism type job. So essentially, you're researching the industry that you're working in. Specifically, we worked telecoms, IT, and pharmaceuticals. So those three areas. So in our sprightly 20s, talking to some big hitters in the industry, to host events to bring those professionals together. That was a great experience. It was interesting being a woman in a particularly male-dominated environment, both from IT and from a pharmaceutical perspective. So standing side by side with Joe at a registration desk one morning, and somebody had a question about the event, and of course they directed it to Joe, who then said, yeah, and the conference manager for this one, you better ask the boss, which was me. So part of that experience was keeping my maiden name. So I'm Melinda Fonda rather than Melinda Catcheside, as it was important that I kept my own identity in name as well as nature. Then through after 10 years of working in the industry and running our own conference company, we then went into a more bricks and mortar industry of a state agency. That was on the back of both kids being born. We ran that for 16 years. So
we'd built up a property portfolio by that point from the conference industry and from the organic growth of the property capital value in a rising market. And our experience of a state agency had been that it was generally pretty awful, whether we were buyers or when we were landlords, and before that when we were tenants. And we saw that as a business opportunity. So when we were looking for something that we could work around the kids, and we wanted something a bit more grounded and a bit more bricks and mortar, that's what we came back to, going, well, we have consumer experience of this. We're not trained as estate agents, but we can learn that side of stuff. But if we build the business that we want it to be from the customer experience, then we could just fill in the rest behind us. And it was an opportunity to do things a little bit differently and to try and be a disruptor in the sector as well.
Nice. So you've been working together for quite a while now, and it still works. So actually, what is a good question that I think nice to ask now is kind of, did you when you started working together, did you kind of sit in certain roles, or was it something that you had to go, well, you're responsible for this and you're responsible for that, or how does that kind of work dynamics wise, what you're responsible for within the business and that kind of stuff?
Mel, this reminds me of the conversation we had with Jenny
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So if you want to pick that up, that's a story. That would have fun.
So I'm Catholic, and before we got married, you sit down with a counselor, mentor type person, and it's just a short meeting, and they ask you the question, "What's your thoughts on marriage? Here's 5 minutes and a pen and paper. Off you go." And that was a really brilliant exercise for both of us. So diligently we sat and we filled our papers and possibly turned it over the other side. And she said, when we reconvened, well, for starters, you had something to write, because often that's not the case. You know, people don't actually take the time to think about what it is that they are getting married for, or what their expectations are, let alone have the knowledge to write it down. So we felt like we'd got 10 out of 10 before we'd even started, which was a nice feeling. But then she started to ask questions about what are the roles in the family. And it was like, well, don't really have specific roles. We're equally capable of changing a light bulb and doing the washing up. And if it comes to the car, we're both not mechanics. We'll hand that over to a professional. So we aren't sort of delineated specifically. Joe can cook a very nice dinner, thank you very much, and does so on a regular basis. And whoever the least wants to make a cup of tea or coffee, the other one will make it for them. So it's very fine line sometimes.
Yeah, but we can kind of sit there going, really, me, that you? No, honestly. But we
Yeah.
don't generally end up in arguments about who's going to make a brew or who's going to do the VAT return or whatever it might be. So no, we don't have delineated roles, and we're quite good at kind of instinctively working it out and sorting out to help the other one who needs it most.
Yeah. But her clanger question was, if you had $1 million, what would you do? And in unison, we both said property.
Yeah.
So that was a unifying experience as well. So yeah, we had by the point we were getting married, we'd been together for a few years already. My dad had introduced Joe to Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. And we'd taken a few lessons. So our property journey and things was already not underway. I owned property and Joe owned property, so we hadn't yet got married and invested together, but the foundations were definitely there.
Yeah, and I can relate to that because obviously, we met through some training we were doing at a property trading company, and that's kind of how we came together as, property investors kind of first, and then secondly, setting up a business together. So let's talk about that. It's a project that we're working on together at the moment, which leads us into the PrimeKnowledge podcast and kind of why we've set up that. So who wants to talk about kind of what we're doing now?
Well, I'll talk about the starting point because, as you said, and Andy, we met you and Rachel originally in kind of property related stuff. I think actually when we recognised that we were going to start having conversations, we realised we'd already got each other on our phones from a previous occasion.
Yeah, we'd met before and didn't realise it. We were in mutual WhatsApp group chats.
Yeah, exactly.
All interrelated courses that we didn't even realise we were together at. So yeah.
Then although we'd met in that property context, actually the same company organised speaker training. So you, Andy, met Melinda on, I think, the kind of the taster day session. Is that right? On the one day session?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, discovery day for that.
Yeah.
And then you and I met when I was already at that point in the Speaker Academy program, the kind of a 12-month mentorship, and you joined that mentorship program, and we ended up therefore being in close proximity in quite a raw environment. There's quite a lot of kind of personal home truths being shared, and the thing that so we met up every month. We'd have a coffee and a bit of a chat, and occasionally share stories and stuff. But the thing that really kind of prompted this that we're working on now was following the sale of your business over the course of 3 months. of the mentorship program, whereas at the start of every session we'll do a wins and challenges and what have you done this month and what's been good, what's been bad. And so through that process we followed you selling your business from the initial I'm selling my business and it's quite stressful to the following month I'm selling my business but the sale's not gone through and there are cash flow challenges and there are relationship challenges within that and it's really stressful. Then to the third month of I've sold my business and I thought I'd feel great and now I don't feel anything and I don't know what I'm doing. And I kind of jumped in with a contribution to say, yeah, we'd been through that similarly through the sale of our business. And although I was long past it, Melinda was only just coming through that end process 2 years on. And firstly, you're not alone. It's like a grieving process. So what you're feeling is not unusual. And secondly, it's not going to end anytime soon. You've got to work through it and there'll be more work to do before you get out the other side. And our mentor on that session, Robert Upright, went, you two need to write this into a program because people don't know this stuff. So that was kind of the instigation for us working together. I think we'd already by that time got to know each other and got to know that we liked each other. Actually, at that point, we realised that we'd got some value to deliver into the world that isn't being talked about very much, and that was the instigator for us to get together as a four and start talking about how the business might look and what things we could bring to a broader public that the public would actually have a need for, even if they don't always realise that they do at that point. But that's a whole different story.
So Mel, do you want to talk about the first kind of offering that we've put out there and like give a little intro to the guys listening?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Sell Your Business course is it's a whole picture kind of event. Excuse me. So when you sell a business, you need your professional team around you of brokers and solicitors, but actually having somebody that will guide you through the HR issues and focusing on your business and keeping that as a going concern, whilst at the same time being able to look to the left and your exit sign, and somebody to guide you carefully towards that. The things to do to prepare, so what your buyer is actually going to be looking for doesn't actually come out through the broker's analysis of your business. So yeah,
I'll jump in because it looks like you're struggling with a frog in your throat. But the thing that I find really interesting is that every time I talk about the course that we put together as our initial offering, people's immediate reaction is, oh, that's really interesting and important. I'd never considered that. So when we're talking about the sale of a business, finding your power team, finding your broker, finding your solicitors, finding your financiers if you need them, finding the people who will guide you and mentor you through the logistical process can be done. If you don't know what you're looking for, it's hard to know what questions to ask. But ultimately, if you own a fireplace installation firm, eventually you'll go to a broker and say, look, I've got this business, I want to sell it. What do I do? But what none of those professionals guide people through is the process of dealing with the emotional and psychological and intellectual kind of roller coaster that's involved. So if you are selling your business, but your staff are asking about when they can have a pay rise or when they can get promoted or what the plans are or when we're opening a new office, then you're living a double life of telling the staff one thing with your business plan and also telling your prospective buyers and your power team a completely different thing. And that takes a huge emotional strain. And that's not something which I'd seen in any of the books or gathered from any of the advice that we've been given by people in those power teams. And then similarly, and as you experienced, Andy, when you've sold the business, if you've spent 5, 10, 15, 20 years of your blood, sweat and tears building something up, when you stop doing that, and very often it's a cliff edge, then all of your identity and your routines and the structure and pattern and organization of your life is based around that thing that you put so much into. And then losing and stepping away from that is a massive psychological challenge. It is like a grieving process, and it involves a complete revisitation of who you are as an individual and what your role is. And when people say to you, "Oh, what do you do?" and you have a different answer for the first time in a long time. So those aspects, when we discuss our course and our starting point, at least in the program that we've taken to market, the people that I talk to about it, the business owners and the friends that I've got who are either, even if they're not thinking about a sale process, have never previously thought that maybe one day they are going to have to end the running of their business, because life has a certain kind of expiration date for all of us. So whether it's 10 years, 15, 20 years down the tracks, or whether it's this week, next month, next year, nobody that I've spoken to has thought through what that's going to be like as an emotional process. And none of the training that we've seen anywhere covers that kind of thing. And as soon as I say it to people, they go, "Oh yeah, that's important."
And it's the bit that that brought us together in the first place.
Yeah.
It was initial conversations was I was really struggling with the emotional side of all of it, and it took me a long time to get through that process. And I was adamant that the process of selling my business was not part of who I was, and I wasn't part of the business, but I clearly was, because when I exited it, I wasn't left in a particularly good way. So yeah, we've put this course together to help people through the process, help them with not just the physical aspects of the sale and the structural side of things, but also the emotional and support side and that sort of stuff. So that's kind of how we're working together, and that's kind of why we've put the podcast together, and we're going to put lots of content out there for people to help people through that process. So and that's kind of the basis of what we're building here. So getting back into working with partners then, as we finish the episode, obviously you think it's good, still working for you, working together, living together and everything else, which is awesome. And what would there be anything that you would recommend to anyone if they were going to go into business with their business partner before they
Yeah,
did?
absolutely. For starters, it's not for everyone, and that's okay. We've got plenty of friends who delineate roles. They have very specific work times and they have very specific family times, and they will not blend the two no matter what. And I think that's the beauty of human experience. That's great. For us, it's important to remember to be in each other's presence, not just each other's company, or vice versa. What I mean by that is we can very happily be in the same room without actually interacting with anyone, with each other. And so it's important to then, have a coffee together and have a date night and have a few things that actually mean that you're just focused on each other for that particular time. Yeah, yeah, please.
Are you asking me out? We're going for a date.
Yeah.
No.
I would say so you talked earlier about dinner and how important that was for like family time and spending time sitting around the table with the kids, and I was so resonating with that. And then also the date night thing is so important, and just for you to get the freedom to just have a drink, have something nice to eat, and just talk about stuff that's potentially not family, kids, and work, to just kind of reset. And because that's the thing, sometimes you get so caught up in what's the next role, what's the next job, what we got to do next, and sometimes you forget that actually you're in a relationship that's not about work as well. So yeah, a date night is great advice, I think, to separate, and that works across all relationships, whether you work together or don't
Yeah,
work
exactly.
together.
I mean,
Have
there's got to be,
boundaries.
when you're in a relationship with anybody, a friendship, even not even a kind of a kind of life partner type relationship, you need to dedicate time when you're just in that person's company and doing things with that person and building that relationship. Like, I know the internet allows us to stay in touch with people at hundreds of miles distance and over a period of many years, but every now and again you do need to touch base, have some time with them. So over the last couple of weeks, I've seen a bunch of friends I was at uni with. I've met up with a guy I was at primary school with, and a personal relationship, a life partner relationship is the same. It's the same when you need to be doing those things on a day-to-day basis, sometimes on an hour-to-hour basis. So yeah, we can be working together, and yeah, we can be working on either on a project together or on different projects that are in parallel. But there has to be a moment where you have that kind of water cooler moment you have in an office where you go, do you know what? We're chatting about Donald Trump. We're not talking about life plans or the kids or anything important. We're just spending a little bit of time in each other's company and just hanging out. And if you live busy lives and if you've got lots of different things going on, as I know your clan do, the same as us, then sometimes you actually have to choose to set time aside for that because there's never going to be free time. So you've just got to allocate the time you've got into the things that are important.
Yeah, definitely. Diarise in time to step away from anything, whether you're, like you say, it's just to spend time with friends or spend a bit of time away from the kids or just take a little bit of time away from the business. And it's all the same. Like it gives you kind of a fresh energy to go at the next job. And I think that's a great bit of advice for people to go, actually, you know, even if you massively love what you do, that little reset, even if it's just one dinner for a couple of hours, just to reset the brain to go, oh, cool, I feel good now. We've had a really good chat about shit not related to this. And then we can move on to the next
It
bit.
reminds me of an argument between two uni mates of mine, one of whom is brilliantly logical, but has always been a salaried employee, and that's his mindset. That's kind of what he does. And the other guy who's a little bit wild, both of them very, very clever guys. And the one's a little bit wild, but runs his own businesses and always has done. The guy who runs his own businesses as he said, he diarizes time to be spontaneous. And my logical comment was, how can it be spontaneous if you've diarised it? And the other guy was like, yeah, but I know at that point I can do anything. So I can but if I don't have a time when I can do anything, then I never do anything. But
absolutely,
it's contradictions, but there you go.
Oh, it's like you say, it's making it work for you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Every relationship's different and all that kind of stuff. So cool. That's been really good. Thanks for jumping on this and doing this today, guys. I think it's been really interesting to hear other people and how they manage working in a business with their other halves. That's awesome. Have you got anything that you guys think would be interesting to add at the end of the episode, or do you think we've sort of covered?
I think Mel's line that actually, it doesn't have to work like this for everyone, and that's critical. Like there is no template, just as anyone's model for their relationship is not going to be exactly the same. There'll be touch points and points that are similar, but it's unique to their experience. And that's going to be just as true in terms of how and if you work with a life partner.
Absolutely.
As it would be in every other aspect of your relationship,
business, family, children, friendships, allocate space for all of those things in your life. Acknowledge what's important for you. And if you can, write it down. It helps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, getting stuff in a diary is key. It's so hard as you get more involved in business and life for you to just go, cool, I haven't seen these friends for months. You just have to set a date and do it.
There's a great line from Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn says that the essence of goal setting is just two things: work out what you want and write it down. And that's it. But that would go for personal relationships, that would go for life relationships, that would go for business ambitions and goals as well. So if you've got a mate who lives in Timbuktu and you've not seen them since they emigrated, put it down on paper that that's something you're going to do. If it matters, write it down, and that has a magical way of making it come true. And we do that in our personal life and our professional life alongside one another.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. We're going to put together the team here at PrimeKnowledge. We're going to put together more of these podcasts. We're going to give you in-depth insights into the course, business. We're going to share lots of what we're doing, basically. We're going to be quite open and frank about the meetings that we're having, the way we're trying to run our business together, to be open and transparent and give people the opportunity we're building a business from zero. So we want to give people the opportunity to understand that process. So that's what we're going to do with the podcast and the YouTube. So if you've been listening today, hit the follow button so you don't miss any episodes. Make sure that you check us out. In the show notes will be links to our mailing list and our website, our YouTube, Facebook, that kind of stuff. So we would really love to have you on board. Reach out, send us an email, send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. And we will see you on the next episode. All right,
Bye.
see you there, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers.